was founded in 1790 by a local man, a local farmer called John Ross. Highly unusual name for the county of Rossshire. And it was run by himself and generations of his family until 1893. And it then passed into the hands of a wine merchant from Inverness called Alexander Cowan. And that date is significant because he actually moved Balblair Distillery to this site. The original site was at Balblair Farm, which is about half a mile away from this site. And the reason for that was really to utilise the railway line, literally 3 metres away from my office. It's a bit unnerving, but keeps me on time. Mr. Cowan ran the distillery until 1911. Unfortunately, because of excise duty, taxes, etc., he couldn't survive, so he was declared bankrupt. So between 1911 and 1948, there is nothing happening at Balblair. By 1932, all stock had been sold, covered debts, so it really was a ghost distillery. It wasn't until 1948 that a solicitor from Banff called Robert Cummings bought the distillery. There's obviously no solicitors here. Typical solicitor, far too much money, so he buys a distillery, and we managed to get production going in 1 year, which is quite an achievement because this place really was derelict. Mr. Cummings ran the distillery very successfully until 1970. By that time he was becoming quite elderly in his years, and he had nobody really to follow in his footsteps from his family. So he then sold the distillery to Hiram Walker, who then became Allied Distillers. And as Malcolm said earlier on, in 1996, Balblair passed in the hands of Hiram Distillers. So that's really a potted history of Balblair. The water source for Balblair comes from Struy Hills, and it's the main source is called the Alt-Derg Burn, and that's about 4.5 miles into the hill is the actual source, and it runs open ditch until just the other side of the main road, where there's just a concrete tank, and inside there's just a very rough copper filter inside there, and that just removes any debris, twigs, leaves, etc. No, I know sheep. We don't do mutton. And then it's just gravity fed through a pipe down to the distillery, and we have sole right to that water, although SEPA, the environmental agencies, might have an argument to that these days. That's a sore point for distillers. Won't go there. The water itself, this area is actually covered in peatland. So by the time that water actually travels down to the distillery, it has picked up some peat content. And that will have an effect on your fermentation. As far as distillation is concerned, and filling, absolutely not a job. If you look carefully, if the water's running in the mash house, you can actually see there's a brown tinge to the water. That satisfies all our production and all our cooling. Great advantage. Okay. Second ingredient, malted barley. I could stand here and talk for about a couple of days on the malting process, but bore you to tears, you'd probably attack me. Malting is basically taking barley from the field and taking it to a maltings plant, immersing it in water, resting it 3 or 4 times, and then spreading the barley on a floor, allowing it to germinate. But what you don't want to happen to your grains is for it to actually start to transform back into a plant. So to halt that germination, we put it into a kiln. And that's where our kiln used to be. The pagoda is still intact. Where this building here was actually where the traditional floor maltings used to be until 1975. By that time, demand was becoming greater and greater. It was then decided to put outside contractors. We now have very heavily mechanised plants. The disadvantage you have with traditional floor maltings is because you're so reliant on the human element, you tended to get drift in quality. Modern maltings plants, they should deliver one after the other, every single load, consistent. Although I will argue with some maltsters on occasion for quality. spec that we ask from our maltsters is very, very high. If you look at a spec sheet for every load of malt here, to the last count is about 36 different points that they have to hit, otherwise we will see compensation from them.
Are they working?
Success.
Stick my head back in while you talk.
Must have been Derek. There's whiskey in here, he's got to get it out. Our malt here is unpeated, and that surprises quite a lot of people. Because the countryside around here is covered in peat land, you expect certainly a slight peated malt, but ours is virtually nothing. In parts per million, it is 1.5. If you compare that to the likes of Highland malts, Freud's or Beck's, they'll generally be like 46 to 52. So we're really the opposite end of that spectrum.
Don't be shy.
There we go.
Hey! Good job.
It's the first ever bottling of Balblair Distillery.
Oh, it's got a good.
Yeah.
Nice
It's our beer finish.
Look at that. More accurate than that, didn't you? Yes. Unless it's only way.
Oh, that's
You hold it up for me, John.
bottle number one. Bottle number one.
Well, that was hard. Still got to get the heat seal on it in the label.
I bought my head right around it.
People, yeah, I think people are more worried about the whiskey being in the bottle than the label.
No, it's still what's it?
Sorry.
The thing is, it's not much cold here, but these heaters are on tight. So the seals being so new, they've expanded, fractions of a millimetre, that's so tight. So they can work it off in time. But it'll just go through operations to sort it out. Just because it's new, it's all new and authentic.
No. Send it back 3 days ago.
You better watch, guys, you'll have to do this later.
Yes.
Why did you say that? Why did you say that?
Oh, yes. Stay there. A bit Marion was on shore. You could just sign the number 1 spot. Very impressive. Are you tweeting?
Me? No, my Twitter's not working.
No, I can't get the searching.
Joel, his face is alright.